Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome again to my NPTEL course, Role of Craft and Technology in Interior Architecture. So we will be discussing module 20 today, and it will be a summary of week 4. So we will see miscellaneous case studies that we had seen throughout the week, which focus on interior architecture and building crafts. So the broad contents. Again, we will have a visual repository of space making crafts and interior architecture, and we will explore them through varied case studies from India. They are miscellaneous, all the summary of what all we have been seeing throughout the week, and we have some references. So this is case study from Agra, which we had elaborately discussed in one of the previous modules. But since I am putting the miscellaneous case studies from India, and this one is really very exemplary as far as we are talking about building crafts and interior architecture. So I have put some slides again from Agra, and here we see interior architecture and building crafts and their profound interrelationship. We see the filigree work over here, we see stone crafts, exquisite stone crafts, and we see the pictures on the next slide. So we can see how much detailing is there. Here this is the main entrance, and we see the stone inlay. This is very exquisite stone inlay, quite detailed out and in depth. We have a lot of stone carvings. We see different kinds of space making elements, different kinds of arches. We have Hindu arch, we have Mughal arch, we have this kind of trefoil arch, and we have columns. We see the columns over here, very intricate, exquisitely carved column capitals. We see this carving further on the arches and the spaces between the two arches. This is the entrance that here we see the zoom in. So very monumental, different kinds of space making principles we understand over here. We have this plinth which also has a lot of stone carving. We see here on the ceilings again different kinds of arches, so it's very eclectic space making elements, different craft forms, also the construction methods, joinery details, structural details. Here we see another motifs. These are like very intricately carved column capitals. We see them throughout the building at different floor levels. The railings, here we see the structures, the dome, the chhatris, all the different space making elements and different details of stone crafts we see across this building over here. Then we saw a few buildings from Gujarat. So these are some space making crafts and interior architecture examples from Gujarat. We specifically saw this one from Sidhpur, and we saw how in this one small space itself there are so many craft forms and so many techniques that have been employed, like plaster of Paris work, brick masonry, fret work, gilding, painting, wood carving, glass painting, here the brass casting, glass blowing technique, glass etching, marquetry work, ceramics, we see details in ceramics, carpets, upholstery over here, curtains, wood joinery. So all these different materials and techniques and the details, they create this space. So it's building crafts and interior architecture, and we see a perfect marriage here. Different pictures of the furniture pieces. Over here we see a lot of details. Then these are some other buildings that we see from Gujarat, and they have details, another building craft details over here. This again is a very beautiful aesthetic building. We see a color palette over here. We see a lot of space making elements. the kind of spaces that are created, and all the detailing of the craft. Here we see the carving, we see timber as a material, here we see stone, and then we see this structure integrated detail of the stone craft. All these details we see over here, and there are several other buildings. I mean, when we talk about Gujarat and especially Ahmedabad, we all know that recently it received the designation of the first heritage city from India, which has been recognized worldwide. So it has very exemplary cases that can be studied and understood and learnt and carried forward in contemporary times. These are few other pictures from Gujarat, and we see here furniture elements, we see the structural details, space making elements, we see details like this, and we also try to these pictures in itself, they are like photo essays, so we can understand a lot about the spaces through these pictures also. So this play of light and shadow that is happening, the kind of tiling and the inlay work that is happening. Here we can see again space making elements, the arches, the columns, this railing. We can see the stained glass work over here. So we see different kinds of art craft forms and construction details and space making elements. They all together contribute to a very rich space which is experiential, functional, structurally stable, aesthetic. So all these pictures in itself, like all of us should actually do exercises and assignments like this, and we may have one of the assignments like this where we will have photo essays and we have to decode them and try to learn through them. These are another pictures, and these are pictures of a mosque. This is from outside, very famous mosque, huge, gigantic, monumental. This is the interior, and again we see the details of carvings over here and how stone, the local stone, has been used for construction, and all the details over here, the joinery details, how the space making happens through different elements. The priest stands over here, and how the floor is laid, what is the structural grid of that space. From outside we see it's very ornamental, a lot of stone carvings at all different levels, and here we see details. Here on the main arch we see a lot of details. So all these are some interesting case studies from different parts of India, and where we try to understand this interrelationship between building crafts and interior architecture, and also we try to understand the involvement of craft persons, artisans, communities, their knowledge of materials, their skills, the kinds of tools and techniques they would have used, and then the final built environment that we get is the sum total of all this. Again, some more pictures of the same mosque, and we see a lot of construction details over here. What is the structural grid? From inside we see over here some geometric motifs and carvings done. These are exquisite pictures. So here we see this stone jali and this beautiful play of light and shadow at different times, and we see the different panels which are joined together, and then this beautiful jali is created. So there is a very famous Siddhi Sayyad ki jali, and which we saw in the case studies from Gujarat, the module specifically focusing on that, and it has been documented, studied several times. It's a masterpiece, and it has been constructed in several pieces which have been joined together, and the joinery is so fine that one wouldn't even know, where is that line of joint that is happening. That is pure craftsmanship and the skill of the creator. That's how that beautiful tree of life in the Siddhi Sayyad Jali got created. And here also we see this beautiful dome structurally transferring the load through this column, and then we see all these jalis which help in ventilation and lighting, and the kind of mass and void ratio that is achieved over here is also very scientific, and all the different kinds of rich details, the carvings and the craft forms that go into the making of this space is pure magic, and it requires a lot of efforts and time. And therefore these buildings, they have timeless quality, so they can never be out of demand, out of time, out of fashion. They have a timelessness. These are classic buildings. So these beautiful jalis here, they are pure, pure symphony of the crafts, the building crafts and the interior architecture elements. Some more pictures where we can see the details of the motifs in the jali that have been carved out. So we see a lot of geometric motifs, we see a lot of floral motifs, and there is this square grid which has been followed here, and each panel is painstakingly handcrafted. Another picture which shows this beautiful play of light and shadow. Here we see the inbuilt furniture element, and this is done out of stone, and this is again building crafts and interior architecture. We have this seating element, furniture element which is embedded within the structure, and then it has this beautiful carving on the edge supported by the column and the base structurally. So the entire system, when we learn to decode these systems, we'll get to know what goes into making of even a small element like this. So these are interesting details. Now we shift to Rajasthan, and Shekhawati is one region of Rajasthan which is very famous for its havelis, for its paintings, narrative paintings, different art and craft forms. So these are some images. There is this one drawing also from Shekhawati region, and there are different havelis over there, and we see this paintings in natural pigments. We see the timber and timber crafts over here, lot of carving, and we see some metal work over here, the hardware over here in the frame. We saw the see the metal work again here in the hardware. So we see the paintings which are done in lime plaster, and it's called araish. We saw the timber craft, the carvings, and we see the metal works over here which are quite rich, and the entire combination of all these art craft forms create this rich interior architecture. This is another haveli from Shekhawati region, and this is the entrance door, and we can see how intricate are the wood carvings, and we see the belief systems are still the same that we saw in Uttarakhand also. So here again, this is the main door, and we have the god motifs over here to prevent the evil from entering inside. And standing at the door, we get a glimpse of this beautiful interior space flanked by a central courtyard, and we see a lot of space making elements like these columns and arches, and we see the structural elements like bracket and lot of paintings and motifs and in rich beautiful natural pigments. Not all of them are original natural pigments, they have been repainted now with other kinds of paints, but lot of the paintings still have very original paintings, and they are still done on the lime plaster, and they are still done with the natural pigments, and they had very specific palette of blue, the different kinds of blue colors and the family of blue color, different tints and tones of blue tones of blue colors that go into the making of these paintings. They were like very distinct color palette they have used, the people and the community which had created these paintings initially. So these are different paintings that I was talking about, and they also talk about different stories. So this is like Krishna Radha Leela, this is the game of Chaucer, so that is being talked about here, depicted here. This is very fascinating. We see a train over here. So lot of things are also out of curiosity, imagination, and something that was starting to happen at the time when the Britishers came, or something that's not yet there in India but people wanted it to come. So lot of curiosity and imagination, and we have lot of memory associations, aesthetics, we have natural motifs from nature, lot of floral motifs over here. So, and we see some interior architecture elements here, a built form being depicted over here. We have stories of the kings and the gods. So these are all different narratives, and these are surface crafts that we discussed, one category, surface crafts, which is basically narrative in nature, and these are the different havelis in Shekhawati where these can be seen. This is another Haveli which has now been converted into a hotel, and some work has been done on it. It's not the original Haveli with the original paintings and motifs, but structurally still we see a lot of space making elements that define the character of these Havelis. So we see the connection with the sky and the courtyard, how it is centrally placed, and then this arcade which runs throughout, and this central place which creates an enclosure, like the distinct characteristics like we see in the Havelis of Rajasthan. So those are still there, but the paintings and the color palettes, that is absent from here, which is taking away the character of Shekhawati Havelis from this particular one, which is contemporary, and it's a case of adaptive reuse. These are the ones that I was talking about are original, and we can see the difference between this one and this one here. So they have a very unique character. We see the metal craft, again the surface craft, the narratives, the paintings. We see a lot of timber work, and there are all different kinds of categories of crafts that we can see in this interior architecture. Structure based, structure integrated, then we have surface integrated, we have narrative crafts. We see different kinds of crafts that can be seen over here. So they are purely building crafts, and we see how the interior architecture quality and experience is enhanced through them. These are some pictures now from City Palace Udaipur, and the pictures are not very good quality, sorry about that, but we can still get a hang of what are the different kinds of building crafts that we can see. So there is mirror work. Here we see a jali with the mirror, stained glass. Here this is mirror and this is stained glass over here. Then we see these tiles, and we discuss the category of these building craft forms, which are surface clad, which are surface integrated. So now you can take a call on that. Here also we see the mirror work, the colored mirrors over here, and this is very exquisitely seen on this entire this arch and this door frame. Everything over here that we see are some building crafts, and they fall into one or the other category. We see also the paintings. Again, some paintings on the ceiling. We see the stained glass and the play of light and shadow. We see the stone craft carvings over here. We see these blue tiles over here, which are unique in themselves. Again, a stone jali, some mirror and glass work. Again here stone work. So we see a lot of inlay work that can be seen in this palace, and this is blue glass inlay work. This is inlay work again with tiles. This is very detailed out, and to protect these now, the palace authorities have also put a panel that nobody can touch them, and because see, few of them are getting completely damaged, so it's very important to restore and protect them. So this is again an extensive work done by Drona. They have been working on City Palace Udaipur since a very long time, and they have really contributed in conservation and restoration of this palace, which is one of the biggest palaces in India, and Udaipur is a very beautiful city which has a lot of cultural tourism, and many tourists come to this palace. Other details in this palace, we see other different kinds of craft forms. In the module which was specific to Rajasthan, we have discussed the details. So we see a lot of pictures over here which refresh our memory about all these building crafts in the interior architecture of City Palace Udaipur, Rajasthan. We saw some details of this courtyard with the peacocks, the meenakari work, the mirror work, the glass work, and also the space making elements that go into the creation of this beautiful courtyard and the building crafts. This is Mysore Palace, very famous Mysore Palace. It also has a lot of space making elements and building crafts. So we see onion domes over here. Then we see the stained glass in the interiors. Here again we see the miniature arches over here. We see the balconies. So there are a lot of space making elements. We see a structural aesthetics also, as well as when we go in the interiors, there are a lot of surfaces that are visually very appealing and very aesthetic. These are the pictures of the interiors. Now we see these tiles on the floor. They are very famous traditional Atangudi tiles, and very few families are left which still practice them. These are all handmade and we don't get to see them often now. So they have a very unique vocabulary and a very distinct visual appeal. It's not probably achievable in what we get as the manufactured tiles, in contemporary times. So these are all handmade, and all the beautiful patterns that are seen over here, the different kinds of again handmade tiles and the cladding done, the interior courtyard and all these space making elements, the huge columns and the arches, and we see such details on the ceiling. We see the metal work also. This is a central, inside the building we have this skylight, and then there is a lot of intricate stained glass work over here, which I just mentioned in the previous slide, that the interiors has very exquisite stained glass work in Mysore Palace. Few other pictures we see here, column base and shaft which is fluted with this golden, golden lines or wires, and here we see this beautiful intricate carving. This is the stained glass work that I was mentioning. We see this timber craft over here, the handmade tile work over here, this amazing ivory work on timber we see here. We see a lot of nice metal hardware. So again, the different materials, their knowledge, the knowledge of the craft persons to handle those materials, different kinds of techniques that have been employed, the stained glass work, the wood carvings, the metal work, all of this has resulted in creating a timeless interior architecture piece like this. Some more pictures again here. So beautiful ivory work again. So all these building crafts and cultural activities and building the belief systems of the community and the craft persons, they have created this amazing palace. Now some case studies from Uttarakhand that we saw, so I will be just brushing up. Royal Orchids in Dehradun, so we see a lot of stone and timber work here and very interesting joinery also. We saw this Bikaner Sarai in Haridwar, and we saw different details of stone craft as well as metal craft in this building. We saw this Gurudwara in Dehradun, and we saw some nice frescoes and some interesting space making elements in this one. We saw the pictures and we saw again the very intricate motifs and fresco work. We also saw some stone craft in this Gurudwara, but which is the later addition. We saw these amazing pictures from Dhar Chula, which here show the intricate wood carvings and different space making elements. We saw the details of the Jageshwar temple, and this is also very famous temple and richly crafted out of stone. We saw this beautiful Mahashudevta temple, and we saw the different space making elements and different ornamentation and different details that are present on the building and different construction details. We also saw one old Haveli from Roorkee, and there are a couple of them, actually quite few of them which are there in the old Roorkee. And we saw the structural details, and we also saw the building crafts. We saw the timber craft, we saw the stone craft. We saw some more travelers in or sarais, and we saw the rich fresco work, how it is done. And we also saw some construction details of what they are made of, what were the construction materials used. We saw these very interesting pictures of Solani Aqueduct from Roorkee, and we again saw some joinery details, some metal work, the brick work. We saw some hill settlements from Uttarakhand, and we tried to understand the local materials and how they construct these built forms, especially here we are talking about the roof form. We also just brushed up and saw a few slides on Koti Banal architecture, which we have been anyway discussing about. We saw this village Malari, and there is one residence over there, and we saw the details of the Koti Banal style of architecture and the interior, what is done by the community and the way they use the local materials. So we saw this repository of different case studies from different places in India, and all of them have these unique interior architecture style. They have their own distinct palette of art and craft forms. They have their own distinct palette of materials and the stories which are associated with each one of them. So throughout all these previous modules, and especially this one where we are talking about case studies, we were just trying to create a plethora of different interior architecture styles and different art and craft forms, so that we could have this creation of repository of different cultural and creative industries of India, and all of us can contribute in our own ways, so that we have a rich resource hub. We document them, we understand them, we study them, and we try to take them forward in whichever possible ways we can. Obviously there will be some modifications, either in the material palette or in the morphology or in the interpretation or expression, but the fact is that we have such rich knowledge systems, and we have such skills, and we have such interesting art and craft forms. So in whichever way we want to continue them, but it's important that we link back to them and do not let them languish, and eventually find people who still work with them and create employments. So if we as architects during our projects, if we can make this a thumb rule that we will employ certain craft persons, and they will be the inherent and innate part of our projects, like architect Nimish Patel does, Abhikram Architects. So that's a very interesting way of creating interior architecture which also contributes in the recognition of creative and cultural industries, creating employment and creating timeless interior architecture. I would like to end up with this interesting quote: "Always design a thing by considering its next larger context. A chair in a room in a house in an environment in a city plan." So it's very important also to think about the context in which we are situating a design. Architecture is not like physics or mathematics. Even though it uses technology and engineering, it's an art. And because we live in buildings, work in buildings, even celebrate the spirit in buildings, architecture is a very human pursuit. It's in the humanities. So this is what sums up when we talk about the human involvement, creativity, imagination and community involvement. Our next module, it will focus on craft and technology in interior architecture, decoding systems. So it will be very interesting to know how we decode systems embedded within interior architecture and craft and technology. Some references for all of us. Now this slide is specific to what we discussed today, case studies from Rajasthan and Gujarat, Uttarakhand. So we have something on Thikri Kam, City Palace Museum that we saw, glass making technique, something from Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh where we see timber and stone Koti Banal architecture. So these are some specific references. Other than that, the consolidated list. Thank you.